Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. And I have a real treat today. I have Dr. Adam Rubinstein, and he is a board-certified cosmetic, plastic, and reconstructive surgeon practicing in Miami for the past 20 years. Boy, does that fly by. He's also in an area called Aventura, which is best known, I just learned this, it's best known for you're like the third biggest mall in the United States. Isn't that amazing?
Number one most profitable mall, as a matter of fact.
That is good to know. I don't know about any more though, but that is great. Dr. Rubinstein is past chief of the Department of Surgery and the section of plastic surgery at Jackson North Medical Center. He's also clinical faculty in Florida International University School of Medicine, as well as the Cleveland Clinic Plastic Surgery Residency Program in Florida. Now, he's an active member of several medical societies, including Aesthetic, Bariatric, and Anti-Aging, which I wanted to ask about a little later. So welcome to Beauty and the Biz, Dr. Rubinstein. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure. Catherine, I know we've known each other so long. I think I understand you want to be respectful and call me Dr. Rubinstein, but Adam's just fine.
I mean, I literally feel like I remember you starting. I mean, we've been doing this for 20 years, because I've been at it 21. We must have been at the podium like, oh boy, like at these conferences a long time ago. So let me ask you this, because I actually don't know. Why plastic surgery and why Miami?
Well, those are two different questions, two different answers. Plastic surgery the short answer is just because it matches my personality. And once I knew I wanted to be a plastic surgeon, then I wanted to know, so once I knew I wanted to be a doctor, then I had to decide, well, what kind of doctor am I going to be? And I was working in an emergency room in New York when I was in high school and volunteering just to get some experience. And they split into a medical side and a surgical side, and I immediately went over to the surgical side. It just was more what was interesting to me. And I remember a young girl came in, maybe 8, 9 years old, with the tip of her finger chopped off in the door. Right. And parents came in frantic, and they had the thing, wrapped up in some gauze. And we took the little finger, called plastic surgery resident, and he came down, put his loupes on, and sat down and, very meticulously put each stitch perfect there. And I had to watch the whole process. So, that is the kind of surgeon that I want to be. If I'm going to do this, that's my personality. That suits the way I approach things. Every little detail just right, paying attention to the finer details. And so, that was the spark for plastic surgery. Nice. And now, why Miami? why wouldn't you want to be in Miami?
Did you grow up in Miami?
No, I grew up in New York.
Oh, gotcha.
But I did. I always had a sense I wanted to practice in Miami, just because I love South Florida. But the real kind of nail that drove home Miami was my wife. I came down here and did my general surgery training, and during my general surgery training, we met, and I did a couple fellowships, one in San Francisco, and then one in Houston. And we were dating through all of that time. And in fact, we got married before I even moved back to Miami. So it was kind of always in the cards once I started my residency.
Gotcha. And now when did you jump from, I assume you started in a hospital setting in academia, and then when did you jump to solo practice?
I didn't. I went solo from the jump.
No kidding.
When I left, I trained at St. Joe's in Houston when it was the original St. Joe's program. And as soon as I graduated the program and finished training, I came back and started practicing, and I've always been in solo practice.
How in the world did you know how to work the business side of things? Did you know?
I have to tell you, I say this to a lot, because I talk about this, we've presented together a few times, and I think doctors are notoriously some of the worst business people.
They do say that. I give you guys credit, though. You were very busy learning how to be a surgeon while the rest of us were learning business, so you get a pass on that.
Well, I mean, maybe. It's certainly understandable, but it doesn't make it easier.
Correct.
Right? I mean, you have to learn on the fly, otherwise you can't survive. And especially someone like me who goes straight into private practice. You have to do a lot of learning as you go and learn quickly. Otherwise, you're in a sink and you have to swim. So we are at a disadvantage because none of our training, whether it's in residency, in college, unless you happen to do a business degree, if you did an MBA at some point, I have colleagues that did that. Mm-hmm. I actually considered getting an MBA after I finished my training because I thought, man, I'm having to play catch up on all this, and maybe I should just get an MBA and really get educated in all things that are business. But I think at the end of the day, if you have a pretty settled mind and kind of logical ability, it's not that hard to figure out what makes sense. And good business just makes sense. So you have to seek out some education. I try to do things like this, seminars, webinars, learn what I could at different times when I needed it. And you have to, like I said, you sink or swim. And if you're going to swim, you got to learn how.
Did you know right away who to hire? I find surgeons get caught up on that. Either there's the surgeon with the big eyes who says, no, bring them on. I'm going to bring on a staff of 20. We'll figure it out. And then there are the others who say, no, I'm just bringing my wife on. That's all my risk tolerance can handle. So where did you fall on that spectrum?
I actually think both of those are bad ideas. I don't know how you feel, but I think I've heard you speak about having your significant other, whether it's your wife.
It could go either way.
I think you talk about having them as a good start, but I think you and I agree that it's a bad long-term solution, except in some rare instances. I know so few colleagues that, I couldn't work with my wife. We'd kill each other. Right. And she'd be the first person to say it. I'm not saying anything out of school. We're both strong personalities, and it just wouldn't work. When it works, it's great. I've seen a couple of colleagues that have really worked that out, but it's a lot of stress, and you're stressed at work with the work-related stuff, and then if you have a family of kids, and all that mixes in, and it's a soup that's hard to eat if you're constantly eating it every day. So I think for me, when I came out, I was on the lean side for sure. And I really felt like when I came out, and this is going to date me a little bit, but Nextech was just new. And for those of you who are watching that are in plastic surgery, Nextech is probably the preeminent software package that we use to manage our offices. And when that was coming out, I felt like, wow, this is like having 1 or 2 extra employees, right? Because it did so much. Mm-hmm. So I was able to stay lean, and I wore every hat. Even today, and we just had a couple of employees give notice, and we're going to be replacing a couple people, and I tell everyone when I go to when I start bringing people in for interviews, I'll tell them, listen, I can wear every hat in this office. I've done it. I have been the person answering the phone. I've been the person booking the cases. I've been the nurse, the doctor, the office manager, the receptionist. I've done every position in my office myself, whether it was a short-term thing or I did it for a while. And I think it's important. I would definitely recommend every doctor getting a sense for what it really takes to run a particular position. Because we all have a sense that, what we do is the biggest, most important thing. And, without us, this wouldn't be here. And I guess, that's true. I don't know about biggest and most important, but certainly there'd be no practice without the doctor. But there'd be no practice without your support staff, too. Mm-hmm. And as a good support staff can make or break your entire practice. And I can say that I've seen jumps in my own level of comfort, in our level of business, our production, with different employees. I've seen the differences from really great employees to people who are just getting by to people who are actually dragging you down, and you may or not know. So your staff is so key. And in the beginning, I tried to stay really, really lean. I still stay lean. It's hard for me to say I'm lean when I'm employing, 10 to 12 people at any time. But it is, when you look at what people are doing, 1, 2, 3 of those, let's say 10, are OR staff alone. And because I have my own operating room, so that adds to the cost. And then another, including me, I'm in there as a fourth. And so there's maybe, 5 or 6 other general purpose, very specific purpose, but office-based staff that I now employ. Mm-hmm. When I started, I had one. I had me and one other person. And at the time I was subletting. So, I was able to latch on to some other person, or the main office reception services, and that person or people, sometimes there were two, sometimes there were one, that would answer the phones, and I always had a separate office management system. I kept all my records separate from anyone I was with at the time. And I think that made a big difference. It was able to save me the cost of having my own receptionist. It did come at a cost of not being able to brand early and retrain your people to do things the way you want to do, but it was affordable. When you're first coming out, in my first year of practice, I grossed. I'm trying to remember this because I used to give the lecture. Well, you used to come, so
Yeah.
I used to give the lecture for ASPS for years, every year, the Residence Day. And I would give the lecture on how to start your practice. When I gave that, I would always talk about how my income level jumped year after year. And I'd show my first year, my second year, my third year. And it grew pretty significantly each year. And it continued to grow, thankfully, and even to today. But my first year in practice, I want to say it was like 330,000 gross.
You were in the black. That's fantastic. That's great.
Oh, well, we were in the black, but that was my gross numbers. But I was in the black, yeah. I mean, we made money in my first year in practice. I think because I stayed very lean and I didn't go build a marble palace, I didn't hire 20 people to do my bidding. It's a nice ego feed, and maybe it looks nice in front of patients, but it's just bad business. And so I didn't do that. I stayed lean, and we kept it that way. But that first year of revenue, I want to say it was 320 or 330,000 gross for the year. And what we did in that first year, what is now what we can do in about a month.
Gotcha.
In practice. So very significant growth. I mean, exponential growth from when we first started. And it just comes from steady, hard work, and things do grow.
How long did you stay in that pseudo office where you were sharing or renting or whatever? Were you renting? Is that what you were doing? But sharing with staff?
Yeah, I was subletting. I was renting a portion of the space there. I was there for 10 years. I was there for a good long time.
What finally made you go from that to, okay, I'm ready to jump?
Well, actually, it was a really nice office. Well, big, spacious office, nicely built out. We had operating rooms there, and it was a good situation made for a long time. Mm-hmm. There was no incentive for me to move or change because the financial arrangements were great for me. Kept my overhead low, but then things started creeping up, and the person that I was subletting from decided that the OR rates. I think the beginning of the end was when he brought in a consultant that decided he wasn't making enough money off of his operating room. And he jacked his OR rates up to a point that made no sense. And I even went to him and said, look, here's the rate that I'm paying in the hospital. Here's what you want to charge me. This is cheaper. Why would I ever want to pay more to operate and have all the logistics and the pain in the butt of, remembering everything and running everything? Here, it's convenient, but why would I want to do that and pay more? And he stuck to his guns, and I said, look, if you don't go back to our original arrangement or find some, reasonable number, some rate that is going to make it feasible for me, I'll just take everything to the hospital. Because I have no incentive to stay here and operate if I'm going to be paying more. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, that's up to you, but this is what it's going to be. I said, okay. And I took everything to the hospital. I did every case in the hospital OR for years. And then I'm sure that he wasn't happy with that. Mm-hmm. And that became a little bone of contention. Because he went from maybe not making enough to making nothing.
Right. Why would he do that then? Now he's getting 100% of nothing.
Yeah, bad advice. Like I said, doctors are bad business people.
Those darn consultants, though. They'll mess you up.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, that was bad advice.
He could have called you. You'd have been reasonable.
I personally would have said, are you kidding me? You have a golden egg here. Leave it alone. It's working beautifully. You're all profitable and fat and happy. Why mess with it? That's what I would have said. But
he became a little bit less fat. But, and that was, honestly speaking, I think it was a very comfortable situation. Mm-hmm. I might have stayed there. The plan, we were even talking about me taking over the entire space. Wow. Because he was thinking, maybe he's going to cut back. He might retire. And he's to my knowledge, still in practice, which is crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
He wasn't too young when I started, and we're 20 years down the line, and he's still going. God bless him. But at the time, we were thinking maybe I would take it over. He could pay me rent.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of flipped the situation. So when he wanted to slow down or work less or walk away, he could.
Great exit strategy, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. And I tried to make it an attractive arrangement for him, and that didn't work out. So I tried to kind of, cut up the space different ways. I tried to make a good business arrangement between the two of us, and he was just kind of stuck in what he wanted to do and didn't want to negotiate away from that. And the rest is history, really, because once I stopped doing the cases there, doing everything in the hospital, it became slowly over a 2 or 3 year period more and more contentious to stay there. And so I didn't.
But it was time for you to grow. So now, what's your situation?
Well, I would have grown either way, right? I mean, I either grew by taking over the space there and being able to use more, to be more versatile there. But, once I left and had the entire space to myself, it really did open doors for me to expand and bring on new services, to be able to be more flexible. And it made a huge difference in the profile of my practice. It was more expensive to start, and it was a leap because, I had to take loans and finance the build out. And I now am in the penthouse of a tall office building here in Miami, and I have a 3,000 or so square foot office, which again is not overgrown. It's a little tight when we get really busy, but it's comfortable. And could we use more? Sure. I mean, I could have filled 10,000 square feet if I wanted to. But again, keeping it lean, keep the overhead low, and try and maximize the profitability of the space. Because if you're not using space, then you're wasting money.
For sure.
So we keep everything super tight and use every inch that we have. And so now I have this space to myself. I've got an operating room that is only mine. I'm the only person that uses it, and I've got my full-time staff for the OR. I've got the staff for the office. I do now have, at the time when I was in the other office, I did have one PA for a while, and then when I moved here, we went to this space for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. While we built it, we had a temporary office in the building, and then we finally came up into the penthouse office, and since then, I have a full-time PA that is now going gangbusters. I have 2 different estheticians that work part-time, kind of full-time, part-time. They have their days, and we run the schedule that way. And me.
Huh. You should, if I were you, just from a marketing perspective and a branding perspective, I'd make a big deal that it's a penthouse. In your website, all you show is this big, tall building that is very impressive. But I didn't catch the penthouse part. In Beverly Hills, it's a big deal to see penthouse. So anyway, just throwing that out.
I think, here in Miami, I guess it is something that's impressive.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
People like it.
Yeah. You're the best. You're on the top floor. That's cool. So you have a PA and you have estheticians. I'm torn on estheticians. I'm just telling you, I've watched surgeons struggle with estheticians. Have you had good luck with yours, and are they money makers or are they a pain in the neck?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive, right? You could be a money-making pain in the neck.
I haven't.
I don't know.
I have not seen I shouldn't say Sid. Very seldom do I see a really killer esthetician rocking it. And with arrows pointing to the surgeon when it's time for surgery, and giving up that patient, to get them up that ladder and then bring them back down again to her. But I haven't seen great working relationships with the estheticians. I
have to say that we really have a nice crew. I understand what you're saying, and I guess maybe an esthetician could have some fear of retention of a patient if they were to kick them up for surgery or refer when they get an interest that's more than what they can do. But our roles are pretty well defined, and everybody plays well in the sandbox together. I mean, I do get surgical referrals from the esthetician services that we offer, and they do continue to see the estheticians that they were seeing before. look for their maintenance, because we do complementary things. It's not exclusive, right? It's not like, well, when you get surgery, you're not going to need maintenance anymore. That's silly. And we don't talk to the patients that way either. I mean, they know there's things that you can do in surgery, and there's other things that you do for non-surgical services and esthetician type things, and they're both beneficial. So it just depends on the individual patient, what it is they're trying to accomplish, and how those different services fit into the plan. And I have to say, I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, because I've had a really good, my estheticians have been with me for years.
Good.
And I've never had any kind of competitiveness between them and myself, or even so much between them. It just seems to work well.
That's fantastic, by the way. Do you incentivize them, or how are you handling the staff, keeping them motivated and keeping them just on target, with your vision? Are you doing any staff meetings by any chance? Or?
We do, yeah. We do staff meetings. I don't do them as often as I would like, because we get into good habits and then we break out of the habits. But we usually do. We're trying to do 1 to 2 staff meetings a month. We like to do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we do it before our clinic days. Everyone comes in a half hour early, and we schedule everything a half hour later. So we have an hour block that we have a time for anyone to talk about issues they're having, or bring up some promotions that are coming up. Just make sure everyone's in the know, and we all know what's happening in the practice. Incentivization was your other question. Yes, I do. I believe strongly in that. I think I probably pay for the revenue generating positions. I probably pay a lower base than most people are used to, but we incentivize them more generously. So their upside is significantly higher than they would get just taking the salary. In fact, when I think about my PA, for example, when we hired her, we interviewed a lot of people, and the model that we were using was a pretty generous revenue share with a minimum draw. So, we would guarantee a pretty modest minimum. And even from day one, since we hired my PA, I don't think we've ever, except during COVID, we were in a good situation to be able to afford keeping my whole staff. And I paid everyone through, the shutdown. So, and when I did that, so I think that is the only time that my PA had to invoke the minimum, her pay period minimums. And that's what she made during that time. But apart from that, I don't think, when we're open and functioning, I don't think she's ever been as low as her minimum. She's more than covered it in the revenue share. When I looked at the 2 different models, and we looked at what we would pay a PA if we're going to go full salary, and what was going on in Miami at the time, she's now making about 30 to 40% more based on her compensation model.
I want to back up. I hope everyone heard that, Pearl, and most people miss this, but you actually block time to have a staff meeting. Every office I consult with says, we don't have time for these meetings. And I think you don't have time not to have these meetings. The staff has got to hear from you personally. What's your vision? Where are you heading? What's new? What's not? What's working? What's not? And all you do is have the meeting before your clinic day. It's that simple. I'm so glad you said that. Anyway, back to the PA.
I agree. Before we move on, and like I said when we first started talking about it, I'm not so good at making sure that we're doing them every 2 weeks. But when we haven't had one for a bit, there's a difference. Things are not as smooth. People need to be aware. They need to hear from me, but I need to hear from them. I want to know, hey, what were the issues? Do we have any issues last week? Is there anything that you guys we need to do better? Do we need any new stuff, any equipment? Do we need software that we don't have? Is there some upgrade we're not getting? And try and make sure we have everything we need, that everybody in their position has the tools they need to succeed. So I agree completely. It's super valuable.
Regarding your PA, though, Are you doing reconstructive or are you 100% cosmetic?
Like 98% cosmetic.
Gotcha. So is she doing the injectables? Is that the point?
Yeah, she's doing injectables, light and laser energy treatments. I mean, we have, as you probably know, I'm one of the guys that's kind of known for technology, and I've got all the toys, and so she gets to play with a lot of them. We offer a lot of different services, a lot of energy-based treatments, light and lasers, M-sculpt, ultrasound, cool sculpting, I mean, everything. And so some of that stuff is done when it's appropriate based on Florida statute for my estheticians to be able to do those. We get them trained, and they do some of those treatments. My PA, of course, is trained in all of them, and she does a lot of them.
Do you have any idea, as a consultant, I always want to know the revenues by provider. Do you have any idea the percentage of your revenues that are done by your own hands versus the revenue generating staff?
I could probably figure that out quickly. I would say in revenue, they're probably generating between 15 to 20% of total gross revenue.
It's
and I'm generating about 80 or 85.
Well, do you have any plans to, because now that you've been around 20 years, you're definitely in a new phase where you start looking at, maybe not yet because you have a lot of energy, but a lot of surgeons at that age starts going, wait a second, I am the only revenue generator here. I can't go on vacation. I can't be sick, God forbid, if I have an accident. And they do start looking at that, not even the exit strategy, just the what if strategy. And I used to run a surgeons coaching club, and we would say, if you're generating more than like 30% of the revenues, start looking at that, do you
I don't disagree. I mean, I started thinking maybe at some point in the not so distant future, we'll bring in another surgeon, maybe someone young, growing, and starting out like I did 20 years ago. I'm amenable to that at some point. I mean, right now, I actually do feel comfortable because we have the ship sailing so smoothly. I don't feel bad about taking, and besides the ship sailing smoothly and just financially, knowing that we shut down for 2 months and everything was fine.
Good for you.
So, to take a week off, 2 weeks off here and there, I don't feel bad about that. And I do have my PA and my estheticians running, so there is some revenue generation when I'm gone. It's hard for me to be away for more than 2 weeks, and even 2 weeks kind of feels like an eternity. But I just took a week off. It was spring break. We didn't get to do much of anything, but my kids were out of school, and so I had already planned to take the time off, and we did.
Nice. All right, so let's shift to marketing. But I also want to ask about your building. Are there any other plastic surgeons in your building?
No, there is. We have a cosmetic dermatologist across the hall from us, and we have a good relationship. We share supplies when one runs out. We can borrow from each other. We refer patients back and forth when appropriate. There are a number of dentists. There's a facial plastic surgeon in the building, and likewise, he'll refer stuff, and we'll refer stuff down to him. But thankfully, no. In Beverly Hills, you could have 10 on the same floor. So we don't have that here.
But in the surrounding area, because Aventura, is that how you say it? Aventura?
Aventura, yeah. Aventura is kind of like the Beverly Hills of Miami.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I can imagine that attracting an awful lot of surgeons. So how's the competition there?
I think I don't really view it as competition, and I don't worry about there being other surgeons. Really, never have.
Good attitude.
I think there's enough work for everyone to do well, and it's up to the patient. We have different personalities and different styles and different things people will perceive that we're good at, and other things that other people are better at, and it's up to the patient. So in fact, I encourage patients when they come for consultation, go ahead and make sure you see 2 or 3 other surgeons. Make sure you're choosing, someone you feel comfortable with and you have a good vibe with, and you appreciate the plan. We got good communication between you and the surgeon. That's what you want to have. See, it's a recipe for a good result. And if it's with me, I tell patients, because they say, "Oh, what are you the best at?" Or, "Who's the best?" I said, "Listen, there is no one best. There's a lot of great surgeons, and here in Miami, we're lucky. We've got a lot of really good surgeons here, and we've got a few that maybe aren't so great and maybe aren't even plastic surgeons that are doing plastic surgery. So you got to be careful. Make sure you're seeing the properly trained, board certified plastic surgeons. But then among us, see 2 or 3 and get a feel. And I don't feel that it's really competition. Remember, I was in an office share with another plastic surgeon when I started. Actually, at a time, there were as many as 4 of us in the same office. Oh. And we all had different practices, and we attracted different types of patients. And I never felt that, you always have a competitive feeling when someone's seeing somebody else in the office for a consultation. But by far and large, that was never really an issue. So I just never felt like it's true competition. Patients are going to choose who they're going to choose. And if you provide good service and you do good work, then you'll get your share.
For sure. And I love that attitude. But you plastic surgeons are so competitive by nature. It can be tough that way, and it's just easier to live in your own. Just worry about yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. But beyond that, I think worry about yourself to a certain degree, and don't have a jealousy towards other plastic surgeons. But I think you also have to have a certain amount of caution and kind of generate public awareness. Down here, also in Beverly Hills, you guys have that there too. There's a lot of charlatans out there.
For sure.
There's a lot of internists that are dabbling in cosmetic surgery, and ER docs and radiologists and gynecologists that suddenly decide that operating above the pelvis is a good idea. And all of that is rampant in Miami. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that I care more about. I don't fear competition from them. But I think it's less safe for patients. Mm-hmm. I think they are not aware. They don't know unless you tell them. And so, for as long as I've been seeing patients, if I know a patient is, shopping around, which I don't discourage, I say, okay, but who else are you seeing? Mm-hmm. And, Dr. Jones and Dr. Smith. Well, you should know that Dr. Jones is a board certified plastic surgeon. I think she could do a good job for you too. I think it's a good place to go visit. Dr. Smith used to be an emergency room doctor and took a weekend course in liposuction. And you just should know that before you make that choice. I mean, you might want to stick with board certified plastic surgeons. I don't discourage anyone from seeing any doctor they want to, but just know the choice that you're making.
Well, that's the scary part of marketing, because a really good marketer can usurp a really good surgeon, at least in the long or the short term. So just buyer beware, and education's everything. By the way, have your patients grown with you as you've grown or gotten older? Do you find that your patients and your procedures are shifting because of you? Like, how is that working? Are you still hanging around like the young breast dog patient, or do you prefer a more mommy makeover, a more facelift kind of patient?
I find that in certain markets like New York, and to some extent a little bit in Beverly Hills too, surgeons get known for a particular procedure. Mm-hmm. There's the nose guy, and the tummy tuck lady, and the facelift doc that's known for that. And for me, that's never been what I wanted to do. So I have a pretty broad practice. On any given operating day, I could be operating on face, breast, or body, male or female. I have a very high percentage of male patients compared to the average practice.
Why so many men? And are you doing that on purpose, or is it just happening organically?
No, it just, let me swap you here. It just happened that way. And I think if you just treat people well and you do good work, it gets around. And I've always been sensitive, I think a little bit by design, because I've always been sensitive to men wanting to feel like the doctor has a certain expertise specifically for men, because people believe that cosmetic surgery is primarily for women. And the numbers bear that out. It is. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's exclusively for women, of course. And the people that I've taken care of lots of men. I'd say even now, 20 to 30% of my practice is male.
Wow, that's a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, the average practice, I think, is around 10.
Yeah, for sure.
So, we're 2 or 3 times the average volume of male patients. And then there are some practices that just men gravitate to as well. There are some practices that specialize in male patients, and they'll have 80 or 90% male patients, also given whatever procedures they do.
Right.
But I really love the variety of what I do. I like coming in and having different tasks every time I step into the operating room. And, male, female patients, older, younger, simple cases, primaries, and complicated cases. I actually really enjoy the complicated tertiary cases. The really complex breast redos that have already had 4 or 5 operations and things aren't really working out. It's a nice surgical challenge. And so I enjoy doing them, and thankfully we're typically able to get nice improvements for patients. So that's fun. And I've done a lot of secondary and tertiary facelifts as well. Those are a little bit less fun, but they're good challenges. I'll never forget, I did, there's a professional sports team owner that came to me, and I did his 5th facelift. And he'd had the 4 previous procedures were all done, I think 3 of them by one surgeon, 1 of them by another. But it was all the same flog. I remember making the incisions, and we had a plan. His neck wasn't very well dealt with, and he had this done numerous times. And so I made my incisions, and as soon as I released the tissue and began just breaking the skin, getting the incisions completed, everything sprang forward where I had a gap about this big without having taken any skin out, without having even done much of a dissection. It just sprung forward because of all the pressure it was under from multiple procedures that were just done probably not in the best way. So that was a particularly dramatic and traumatic experience. But I do enjoy the challenges.
Did he get a great result?
He did well. Thankfully, it was. I needed a couple drinks after that case. It was.
He probably did too. Yeah.
My blood pressure. As soon as I made the incision, I said, "Oh my God, am I even going to be able to?" I mean, I know I can close it because it started that way, but holy cow! And that was my blood pressure was like 200 over 100 as soon as I saw that thing pop forward. Yeah. So the difficult cases are they're difficult, but they're also very rewarding. So that's what I really like about it. The tertiary tough cases. I've been doing this long enough now where I feel comfortable taking on almost anything, and I enjoy the tough challenges. So I do get to see my share of them.
I don't hear that very often. At the meetings, we're always talking about the unhappy patient, and my whole spiel is always, boys, select carefully. So when somebody says, I've already had 4, or usually my limit is 2. If I've already had 2 of something, and now I'm going for the 3rd, that's when I say, I would say that's a beware, But
well, for sure, I agree with you. I think it is a beware, but it depends on, I think there are patients that, like that patient had 4 prior facelifts, but never really, the neck was never really properly treated. Yeah. So I knew I could get an improvement in the neck. I didn't expect his cheek to fly forward 2 inches, but you get into the situation and you know what you're getting into and you do your best work. That's all you can do. So I agree with you. And I'm not typically, there's a difference between someone that comes in and has had, 3 revisions on her breast and each of the 3 different doctors, in her opinion, is a complete moron and didn't know what they were doing. But, you're going to be able to fix it. That's a huge red flag for me. But if they come in and they say, well, I had it done and we had this issue and then I went and had it fixed, but it wasn't quite right. And I had another issue and I went back and I had it done the 3rd time and we still didn't get it right. And now I have this new problem because of the last operation. That's a not uncommon cascade for some patients where just for whatever reason, it just didn't go well. Sometimes it's, it could be a problem patient, but more often than not, you can kind of tell, been around long enough, you can kind of read between the lines of what's going on. And you also know who they've been to see. Down here, and I'm sure you have in Southern California too, we've got a lot of chop shops here where, buy one boob, get the second free. And, these crazy promotions and they're throwing in 2 free areas of lipo and, and the whole thing costs $3,000. And you go to a place like that, you're not getting the most experienced or the most talented surgeon at the table. And, when you've had 2 or 3 operations in those kind of circumstances, it's not hard to understand how things didn't go well. So in that situation, it's one thing. But, if I have someone that I saw Jim Stuzen for a facelift and had a revision, by some other big name around town that's well known, and then came to see me and saw they just can't get it right. That's a problem, right? But it's not the same thing as someone who's been to a high volume, low price clinic and had 2 or 3 operations and just nothing went well. It's a different story. But it's not hard to figure out what really is a patient of need given their history and their attitude, and which one is a patient that, well, maybe this is one we probably ought to not do.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about patient attraction and conversion. Before we talk about social media, because that's going to be a separate issue, what are you doing to get patients to you? And are you good at converting them? Do you have a system for that? How's that working out for you?
Well, there's a couple of things to talk about here, but to me, this goes back to your staff. The number one factor, in my opinion, for converting your consults is your surgery coordinator. I've had great ones, I've had lousy ones, and I've had some in between. And you live and die by the person that's going to spend the time closing the case with that patient. And I'm very happy right now to have a terrific surgery coordinator. She's been around the business, she's experienced, and she just is great with people. And my practice is not a hard sell. I don't think I'm the best surgeon for everybody, and I don't think every patient is the kind of patient I want to operate on. And so I probably tell almost as many patients no as I do yes. When someone comes for a consultation, I'm not trying to, I don't need to have 70% conversion. That's not what my goal is. My goal is to be able to be competitive with the patients that come in that I think I can do a good job for, that I think can have a nice result, and that I think are good patients and prepared for the surgery process and the recovery, and they're going to get the best out of it. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, I haven't looked at numbers recently, but I'd say our conversion is usually between 35 and 45%. Sometimes it can jump up to 50 or a little higher. Mm-hmm. But I'm good with that. I don't need to be 50 plus, 50, 60% conversion or more, because I just think patients need to be able to make their choices. And I'm also, another thing I should say is, here in the Wild West, where you can get a breast augmentation for $2,500 out the door, and that's no exaggeration, that happens, even as low as $2,000. I'm kind of expensive. Mm-hmm. My practice is one of the higher priced practices in Miami. And so, we're kind of top of market cost for patients. And so we're also not attracting the patient that's looking for a $2,000 breast augmentation. They recognize the value in going to someone's private practice who's got a lot of experience. It's going to give them a level of care that they expect, that they would like to have. And there's a cost for that. Mm-hmm. So I don't focus so much on my conversion numbers. I certainly do watch them, because I think if it falls off, we want to know why. Where's the disconnect? But as long as we're staying, 40 to 50% conversion, then I'm great. I'm very good with that.
Well, I've noticed as it's gotten more competitive and there's social media and internet marketing, there are a lot of leads. I think the secret sauce in today's world is figuring out, triaging them, getting really, really good at triaging them, because I don't even think it's fair to say, oh, my conversion rate is 50%. If you've done a killer job at qualifying, then that changes that number, or the relativity of that number. Because a lot of do you charge a consult fee?
No, that's a great point. We should talk about that.
That has been a very big deal in today's world, although you're in Miami and you have to know your audience. Some audiences, I'm in a super affluent neighborhood, they wouldn't pay for a consult fee if it killed them. It's just.
But there are doctors in Beverly Hills that are charging $200 to $500 consultation fees, and people pay it.
Yep.
So I will tell you, it's a differentiator, and it changes the respect people have for the time on the schedule. And we don't have a consultation fee, but we do have a no-show fee.
Okay.
We do collect credit card numbers and charge. We authorize the card in advance, so we know it's a valid card.
I was going to say that. Yes, run it ahead of time so they're real clear that you're serious about it. Yeah.
Right, and we do. We authorize it, but we don't run the charge fully through unless they don't show up. And we ask for a 48-hour notice, because if they call the day before and say, "Oh, I can't make it," we don't want to be a stickler about it and alienate someone. And if we're able to rebook the time, then I won't charge them. But if they don't call and they don't show, they get charged, because it's just having a little skin in the game. And that has completely changed. We would have a day of even 50% no-show before we instituted this. And now that we have it, it's pretty unusual for me to have more than one no-show on a consult day.
Good. I highly recommend it. I call it a reservation fee, but in today's world, I really think you have to have some type of skin in the game. It's just too easy not to show up. They don't know you, and your time is too valuable. So I want to talk about social media for a second, because I looked on your site and you have almost 60,000 followers. So good job. And just a few things that you're doing on social. You do live surgeries, stimulation scavenger hunt, V&A, which I thought was so cute. It's a video. It's a patient asking or somebody asking a question on a video, and you're answering it on video. And you almost seem like a newscaster who does those special segments. You have a voice for that, and you're very good at that, so good for you. And then you have Beauty Bash. You had an influencer with 254,000 followers, although she spoke Spanish, so I don't know if that was helpful or not, but she gave you some good coverage there. And then you have this, it's not all the same, hashtag. So let's talk about your social media, because you're doing a good job.
Well, thanks. I'm about to speak in a conference about the use of social media and growing your practice. And I think there's been a clear evolution. You're kind of stealing the thunder a little bit, because I'm going to spill the tea a bit right now. But there's been an evolution in the way that social media works for a practice, and in the way that people look for a practice. Not so much social media, but an evolution in the way that people seek out services, whether it's plastic surgery or anything else. When you and I first started doing what we're doing, back then it was still in the era of you gotta be in the yellow pages or people aren't going to find you. And for starting around that time, and certainly years before, kind of the baddest ad in the yellow pages attracted the most eyeballs, and that's what people would do. And right around that time is when the internet was really taking hold and becoming a thing that wasn't going to go away. And the yellow pages started to dwindle. Then you had to have your web page. Right? If you didn't have a web page, then you were nobody. A web page was like your business card. Don't look at me for the yellow pages. Don't just go searching for me. Just check out my web page. And people would go check it out, and you'd have the information about you there, and that's how people would learn about you. And then as web pages became more popular, Google search became popular. So that's how people would find you. They go looking for the service, and then you'd pop up. It was sort of like going to the yellow pages and flipping to plastic surgeon, and you see, oh, who's here? And so the Google search would cull out based on SEO. So SEO became really important. And you'd manipulate your site that way. And then people that were really good at manipulating SEO would start these directory sites, plasticsurgery.com. And you would pay to be on those sites because they had the SEO thing worked out, and they could game the Google algorithm and make sure that their services were at the top of the search. And you'd pay to be on those. And those listings were competitive too. You'd pay to be at the top of the listing. And so that was the next phase. And then Google algorithm got hip to that, and they started making everything very local, and you're kind of back to SEO. But now social media has become the new yellow pages. People don't go to Google to search for services as much as they have historically. Now they're sitting on Instagram, or they're going to check out on Facebook, and they're going to search, plastic surgeon Miami, or whatever they're going to be looking for, breast augmentation, facelift Miami, whatever. And they'll get a list of people who are servicing, who provide those services. In Instagram, it's sort of like a little mini dynamic website in your hand for each individual business. You know, you can have little behind the scenes views. You can have typical day in the office type of stuff. You can show your specials. You can show your before and afters. You know, I do a lot of other creative stuff that not everybody will even want to do or would be able to do. That's the cool thing about social media, is that you kind of do you. I've talked about this before. I was in Clubhouse, and I was on a panel in Clubhouse. And for those of you who don't know, Clubhouse is like the new thing. It's the latest thing. It's all audio, and you jump in there and you enter a room, and there might be presenters talking about something, and anybody at any moment could become a presenter. They bring you up on stage and you say your piece. And I was a presenter in Clubhouse. We were talking about growing social media, and I always give the advice of, you know, just you do you. For me, I like doing these kind of creative educational things. We do funny stuff. We'll talk about these. Not all the same. I really want to talk about that. And we do a lot of video production, which you have to have the staff to be able to do. And we do a lot of stuff, but that's my brand. And I stay consistent to my brand. And, you know, there are other surgeons out there that have special talents that they may want to highlight. There may be someone who's a sculptor or a painter or a sketch artist. And, you know, they might do something really creative with a time-lapse video of them doing a painting or a sketch and showing off their talents. Or, you know, maybe they have a really interesting hobby and they go out boating or horseback riding or skydiving or who knows what. And, you know, I think sharing a little slice of you and your practice and your personal life is important in social media. I mean, it lets people know you. Patients come in now having known me on Instagram for a year or 2 years or a Snapchat or whatever, and they feel like they know you because they kind of do. You know, you shared a lot of you in social media. So they do come in knowing you to a great extent. And it begins to build a relationship. And, you know, I've heard you talk about this, and I talk about this a lot to people that are thinking about building up a practice. It's all about the relationship with the patient. You know, patients come to me and they will spend, they'll pay a premium to see me. But, you know, I'm not the cheapest practice in town, but they'll willingly make that choice because of their perceived added value that they're getting. You know, they feel like they have a relationship. They know, they've seen what I do. And I'm one of fairly few surgeons. I really don't know anybody in Instagram or Snapchat, maybe one or two exceptions, that share as much as we do in the operating room. I pretty much do a guided tour of every surgery every day. And not everyone does that. The little snippets here or there, we're about to start surgery, maybe this, that, and the other little snippets. But we really try and share everything because my whole style and brand is transparency, honesty. This is how we do it. You know, when we get great results, look at the great results. When the results, you know, when there's a hiccup and someone's having trouble healing and we've got a wound issue, we show that too. But look, this happens. This is part of having surgery. So we're not going to hide it. We're not going to only show you roses and cherries. We're going to show you when there's a thorn. And when there's a thorn, we deal with it. We show you how. And we take you on the journey with us and with the patient. And I think that has really transformed how patients will learn about a practice. But when they come in my case, if they've really been following me for a while, they've seen it all. But they know what my practice is about. It's better than any brochure or any website really could ever demonstrate.
For sure. Are the patients giving you patient consents for all of this social media, the video and all of that?
Yeah, 100%. We consent everybody that comes through the door, and if they don't give consent, then we don't feature them.
But if you're doing surgery every day and you're showing all the surgeries, are you sometimes just showing a body part? And they're, as long as they don't have tattoos.
It's interesting in Instagram. It doesn't matter. We still get consent. We don't even show body parts. Or, you know, we get consent. Any portion of a patient that is ever shown has given consent to be shown.
Good.
I mean, 100%. We never show anyone that did not know that they were going to be featured. Most patients can't wait to see it. You know, most of my surgical, I started asking every patient, "Oh, so you're going to watch your surgery later?" And I'd say 80% say yes. And even the 20% that say, "Ooh, I don't know if I could watch that," or no, even most of those still give consent to be able to post it. Mm-hmm. They're just a little squeamish, and they don't necessarily want, it's like they don't want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to enjoy it.
For sure. I was shocked when I was on YouTube several years ago, and you were showing, not you, but surgeons were showing gory. I thought, no one's going to watch this. They're going to be so grossed out. Then it turns out those are the best, the best number of likes. I mean, apparently the public loves the gory.
Well, let me tell you, what do you think is the number one TV show on TNT right now?
Botched?
No, Botched is E.
Oh,
in Bravo.
I don't know.
Yeah, TNT, Dr. Pimple Popper. Number one show on the entire network.
I hate that word, pimple popper. That's disgusting.
Yeah,
I
know. But that's the point, right? I mean, it is disgusting. And how many times can you watch someone do that?
Yeah.
Apparently a lot. Because it's a very, very popular show. And she's made she's really parlayed that into something fantastic for her. People love it.
Good for her.
So, and then again, that's her doing her brand.
Correct.
Right? That's what she does. That's what her bread and butter every day is seeing these kind of patients. And she made a whole TV show out of it, right? And God bless her. That's great.
Right. So back to you. What kind of team do you need to pull off the social media efforts that you're doing? Because you are going above and beyond most. What does it take to do that and the time?
Well, first of all, the doctor has to be proactive in it. And I pretty much, I've had numerous social media managers through the years. I think I've had maybe 3 or 4 different social media managers, and each person brings a different skill. And now I've kind of got it worked out where I know what I need from that position, and where I have a full-time social media manager. His job, he's actually wandering around in here taking behind-the-scenes photos and video. Say hi, Paul.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Paul.
So Paul is around, and he's taking video of a lot of stuff, taking photos of a lot of stuff. In the practice, I have 2 high-quality cameras that we keep around, tripods. We have 2 lighting packs, audio equipment. I've got a full production capability because we do so much video in my practice. So we've got a lot of stuff that we use. And, Paul does primarily the video content, and he'll put together, he'll take photos and we'll put together some photo posts, but probably 85 or 90% of my posts are video. And he is in charge of the production, video editing, but I guide it all. And I think the doctor really has to have a vision to know what's going to be, a good demonstration of their brand and what you want to put forward. Because really, I can have the most brilliant social media manager in the world, but they're not going to know the various type content that you could produce, right? You can look and see what other people are doing and get motivation and try and copy what seems to be popular, and that's not a bad way to go. But at the end of the day, it's got to be something that jives with you and your brand. And that's where I think the doctor really has to be active. And I'm very active in planning what we're going to put up, probably to a fault, honestly, because I hold back what probably could be more prolific posting. And I think it hurts the growth of the brand because I don't want anything ever posted I haven't seen and approved. And I'm so busy that I don't get a chance to go through a lot of it on a timely basis. So stuff that we wanted to post a week ago may still be sitting in the hopper waiting for approval until I get time to sit down and check it out. But I'm as you might imagine, I'm very particular about even the way it's edited. I want to cut this out, bring the volume up here. It's like being a director and producer. And you have to have to have that mindset because this is you that's being represented. So I think you have to be proactive that way. But you could free the reins a little bit more than I do and allow someone who has a good concept for social media and for plastic surgery or whatever specialty you might be to be able to take the ball and run with it a little more than I allow Paul to do because I don't want to have any hiccups. And I don't want to have something accidentally go out and have something in it wasn't supposed to have or be missing something that I really wanted to demonstrate, have captions that I don't think are really the messaging that I want. Depending on how particular you are, your role is 100% needed no matter what, but the amount of your role will vary. And in my case, I'm very particular, and I direct and produce everything myself, along with Paul, my social media manager, and we have an administrative assistant that also helps out in culling different assets out, getting photos off of our archives, making sure we have the consent for everybody before we publish, doing some of the legwork. Like we're gonna, I think we have it's today, tomorrow, we have an influencer coming in that we're gonna film. And we're going to be doing an Instagram live some point this week, I think tomorrow, with a very big influencer who's also a patient. And she was so gracious to share her surgery, with everybody very openly. We'll talk about that and other stuff, So, and you can get creative, Thank you for the compliment with the news thing. We have a TV concept that we're waiting for a contract from a major network, so hopefully that'll come through. COVID put the kibosh on that for a real long time. I've been waiting for a contract since COVID shut the country down.
Wow. Wait.
Hollywood just, it went away for a year. And, so we've been sitting and waiting, and now everything's starting to ramp up again. So hopefully that'll come through. We do a lot of stuff. And I think one of the things that we're going to do, kind of following along in your brands, we're about to do, besides the TV show, which is major network, we're going to do more social media stuff. I'm getting ready. I used to do a radio show for years. I think I had you as a guest, as a matter of fact, on my radio show.
Nice.
Years ago, I did a show called New Reflections. And, we would do a weekly show live, an hour-long show. And we're going to reprise that. And now, instead of doing it on internet-based radio, we're going to do social media lives. We're doing an IG live, Facebook live, YouTube live, and have guests and talk about different things related in the business and beauty in general. Mm-hmm. So keep your eyes open for Naked Beauty coming soon.
You might be surprised. You might not need Hollywood. You've got this social media thing down. The cachet would be nice to say you were on a TV network, but I don't know. Look at some of these influencers. They are crushing it. So, maybe you don't need them. Hollywood might be icing on the cake, but I think you still have a really good cake.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea how many hours a week you're spending on social? Because I must say, a lot of you surgeons who do it, nobody realizes what goes into it. There's a lot of work goes into that. So.
Yeah, there is. I think that's why you have to have a full-time person. If you're really going to commit to social media, you need to have someone that coordinates it. Now, it could be someone that does other marketing things for you if you're not as intensive as we are. Mm-hmm. We produce a ton of video. Today alone, Paul, how many clips do you think we did in surgery today?
At least maybe 40, 50 clips.
All right, so 40 or 50 clips in one operation.
Wow.
All right, and each of these clips could be as long as a minute, right? So that's a lot of video. And it's, that's being done live while I'm operating. So I certainly can't do it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, people also criticize, since I'm talking about it, I ought to address this because people kind of raise the eyebrow. Oh my God, you're spending 40 minutes in surgery doing social media. Mm-hmm. Yes, but it doesn't stop me from continuing to operate. It's in the stream of the surgery. So, we did a tummy tuck today. As I'm making my incision, we'll be doing a clip. Paul will be there and I'll make my incision. And as I'm taking the knife and I'm making my incision, we're beginning surgery. You can see the marks here, there. We're going to get down, and then I do my dissection. And today we found some unusual scar tissue that you don't see on every case because the patient had smart lipo with some other energy mixed in, some Renuvion that was done. And as we're doing it and I encounter that, I say, okay, Paul, let's put a clip out. And I'm taking the Bovie and I'm opening things up and I'm saying, okay, right here you see there's this white stuff that you see. This is scar tissue that's probably left over from the smart lipo that she had or the Renuvion that she had. And so it doesn't really slow me down in surgery. It just kind of comes along for the ride. But you have to have someone who knows what they're doing and that can be there full time. Mm-hmm. They have to be there in the OR. You can't do this after the fact.
I think anybody trying to compete today, I think you are going to need to add a videographer to the payroll. I have, everyone has. If you are trying to be a personality of any sort, or an influencer, or a brand, video is the way to go. It's just people like it. They like it.
No, we've been doing it. This has been 2 or 3 years of production that we've been doing. And, right now it's just part of the flow.
Yep.
I've had Paul, or, the guy before Paul, or the person before that for now 2 or 3 years. And, we've got a good system down. Paul knows what's up. He knows, he's around in the operating room. We're doing surgery. We get it done fresh. We also do subtitles. I don't know if you've watched our story, but I think it's a good tip. I think subtitles, it's been shown, particularly in YouTube, to increase viewership by about 20 or 30%, because people like to, nobody listen to this here in the office. People like to do this at work. And they can't have the audio on. So they'll sit there and they'll flip through, they get their phone out and they're flipping through, watching videos, but they can't have the sound on. Yep. And so when you have the subtitles, they can sit there and watch it, and they can know what you're saying without having to have the audio on. It doesn't out them for watching videos at work. And so it does increase viewership. So, all these little pearls, they make a difference, and you kind of learn it on the go.
Well, like anything, you have to jump in and do it, and then it becomes habit. At the beginning, it's real crunchy. You don't feel, it's awkward. The staff's awkward, you're awkward, it's all awkward, and then it's good. And then it's smooth, and it's fine. Yeah, and it's necessary. So
yeah, well, it's 100%. Yeah, it's 100% necessary now. You really have to have. I think you need to commit to it, and if you're going to commit to it, then you really have to have the staff to do it. I think if you have one person that knows what they're doing, you can produce enough content for the average practice. Mm-hmm. And again, the doctor's role is going to dictate whether or not you need to have two. Another person that does part of it, and you got to be proactive and be a part of the process. It's not going to happen passively. This is not something you can let your marketing team produce for you and just spit out. That will never work.
Mm-hmm. And you also have to have a relationship with the patients to cooperate, and help you.
Well, I was worried about that. I was worried about that when we first started doing it, because I remember I did this started maybe 3 years ago. We started doing this, and there weren't that many people doing what I do. Mm-hmm. In terms of like showing all the live surgery and sharing all the patient experiences. And when I started, I said, I don't know if everybody's this is gonna fly. Is everybody gonna consent to this? But we had to start getting consents. Mm-hmm. There will be occasionally a patient here or there say, I don't want to do any of that social media stuff. I don't even have a profile myself, and I don't want to be out there. Our high profile patients, most of them prefer not to have it out there. Some don't mind. I mean, some of the higher profile Instagram influencers, that's what they do. Everything's
all over that. Yeah. That's why I think a lot of that is a limiting mindset from the surgeon. I think a lot of people will do what you ask them to do, especially in today's world. There's so much transparency now and authenticity. It's easier than ever, but sure, some will say no, but a majority will say yes when the surgeon asks them. I find that helps a lot too. If you say it just conversationally, I'm trying to grow my practice,
Well, I explain. And for me, it's not really growing my practice. We've got 60,000 followers on one account. I've got another 35,000 followers on another account. And it's, for me, it's not so much growing the practice as it is just being able to share the experience. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of patients out there that may be just like the one you're about to operate on. And it's very reassuring and educational to be able to see, I'm kind of like that patient. I look like her. And, they see the process. They see the patient come back for her follow-ups or his follow-ups. Mm-hmm. And they kind of, it's a fully transparent and honest and open experience that's being shared. They can get the real deal. And that's really what we're about. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's why I do most of what I do in social media, and also why we launched that hashtag campaign. Hashtag is not all the same. And that's a really big deal that we're working on right now. And that is not a practice growing endeavor. It's purely edutainment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to educate the public with funny messaging, with entertaining videos that on a topic that's really important. This is something that people, so I should back up. Hashtag It's Not All the Same was designed and created because here in South Florida, like we were talking about earlier, there are a lot of people doing things they probably shouldn't be doing, in my opinion. And people think it's like buying a sweater. You know, if you go into Saks Fifth Avenue and you see a certain sweater for sale and it's $200, and you go into Macy's and that same sweater is for sale for $75, and maybe you go into Walmart and a very similar looking sweater is there for $25. It's basically the same sweater with probably differences in material. There's some small differences, but you can buy that $25 sweater and still look roughly the same. Big difference when you're talking about health and your life and death and having a significant procedure that's going to manipulate your face, breast, or body. And people don't make that connection, especially with things like liposuction. People feel like, oh, it's just lipo. I'm just having lipo. It's no big deal. And they don't really do any diligence. They don't check out the doc that might be doing the surgery. Price is right. My friend Jane was there last month and she has a nice result. So seems okay. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And so it's not all the same. All doctors are not the same. All clinics are not the same. Techniques are not the same. So and if you want to go to the $2,000 breast augmentation clinic and get your surgery there, that's fine. But know what you're choosing because it's not all the same. And these videos are trying to drive the point home because it's easy to reconcile in your head, when you're a patient and you're looking at, well, why should I pay Dr. Rubinstein $6,500 for a breast augmentation when I can go to South Miami and get it done for $3,000? It's less than half. Why would I not pay the $3,000? Well, there's reasons. And, getting your surgery in my office is different than going to the chop shop where they might do 10 of them in 8 hours. And, you can't have high quality and high volume too easily together. So something's got to give. And the quality is not the priority, in my experience, in a place that is trying to drive lots of patients through for that same $3,000 surgery. So, it's got to give, and we see it. We see the revisions. So the whole point of the campaign is to say, this is not all the same. So we've actually produced 5 videos. We've got 3 videos that we have released in that campaign. There's another 2 videos that we had made earlier and put out separately, but not as part of the campaign, that we're going to re-release with the campaign.
So we can see them now on the internet?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can see all of them. If you go to
Hashtag.
my Instagram, you just go to my Instagram.
Okay.
Our latest one is called New Me Now, and all these videos is these 3 that we've done for the It's Not All the Same campaign.
Gotcha.
All of them are driving a certain point home. The first one we did, what was the first one? Was it the boat captain or the?
We did the boat captain.
Okay, the first one we did was the boat captain. So the boat captain one is called Pilot This, and I want to give it away. Check. They're all funny. Okay. So it'll be worth your time to watch.
I'm going to go check them out as soon as we hang up here.
You'll enjoy it.
All right.
The first one is called Pilot This. The second, and it's about going to see a boat captain to hire him to take us to the Bahamas. And second one was called You Want Fries with That? And it's about drive-through plastic surgery.
Okay.
Because we may have heard about Dr. Miami doing this whole big deal about drive-through Botox.
Yes.
Which most of my colleagues would agree is a really bad idea. But I can't just say, why are you doing drive-through Botox? It's stupid. Don't no one's going to listen to that.
Right.
I just sound like a crabby competitive doctor.
Correct.
So instead of complaining about it, we took the ball and ran with it. So why stop at drive-through Botox? We got drive-through plastic surgery. Try that. So you should check out that video, and it talks about that. And then New Me Now is our latest, and that's about mail order plastic surgery.
Oh, okay. Dear Lord, where are we heading? All right. So it's time to wrap up, and I just want to a couple questions about mindset. Is there anything in particular that's driving you to do all of this, work extra more than a lot of others are? Anything behind the scenes?
I was at, sorry to interrupt. I was at an Easter brunch with dear friends of ours yesterday, and we were talking about this. And I showed them the New Me Now video, and we were talking about that. And it's a labor of love. It's a real passion. I mentioned before, this doesn't grow business for me. This is not something that brings people to the office. Nobody cares about the funny video. No one's going to choose their plastic surgeon based on, that's the guy that was in that funny video, the New Me Now thing. I'm going to go see him for surgery. No one's going to make that connection. But I feel that we have to be the stewards of our own profession. I am my brother's keeper. And in this scenario, we're all brothers and sisters in this industry. And I feel like we all have to shepherd the industry and try and promote safety, because I see not a small amount of patients that have just had unfortunate outcomes from procedures that probably should not have been done, procedures that could have been done a lot better, procedures that should have been done by someone who is actually properly trained in plastic surgery and not dabbling. But patients don't know. You mentioned earlier it's caveat emptor, but I often say, and for those of you you're watching, caveat emptor, buyer beware. But I often say that the emptors don't know how to caveat, and it's our job to educate people and make sure that they're making their best choices. And that's really all I'm doing. I'm very aggressive about it. I'm very passionate about it. And it does take a large portion of my time. Actually, that's what they were saying around the table. So because they know how busy I am. And they look at me, do you have time to do this? Right. How much time are you spending on this? But I feel it's so important that when we're able to carve out a couple hours here or there, we do. And we get it done. And I think, please do go watch. Check out, at Dr. Rubinstein or at Plastic Surgery Truths. At Dr. Rubinstein, you'll be able to see those videos. Check it out. Send me a message. Email me afterwards. Text me afterwards, or send me a DM and tell me what you think. Because it's I think it's an important message to get out there, and not enough people are doing it. And I don't mind being the guy that's going to stand up and say, "Hey, the emperor's not wearing clothes." Right. So everybody notice the emperor is not wearing clothes.
All right, last question. Is there anything that we don't know about you? I usually, because you're pretty transparent. So give us one thing that we don't know about you.
Let me see if I can get this open. One sec. Where the hell is it? I guess you can see me, but this will work. I would say, something you don't know about me. Well, I would say the TV show would be one of them, but
that was a big one.
That's I say the things that I do that maybe I don't share in Instagram or Snapchat as much. I'm a musician.
Oh, there you go.
I play piano, drums, and bass. I've been in a number of bands through the years. And,
what kind of music?
Everything, but mostly pop, classic rock, that kind of stuff.
So you could be like a cover band.
Yeah, right. It's mostly cover stuff. I mean, I've written a lot of music too, but the stuff we do with the bands is the cover music.
Well, there's something to fall back on in case the plastic surgery doesn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
you can do weddings.
I'm not sure if I'm hoping for that or not.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Dr. Rubinstein, and I really hope I see you at a meeting someday soon in real life without masks, actually.
Yeah. No kidding. I'm hoping for that too, and I think that day's coming soon.
Oh, I sure hope so. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening in on Beauty and the Biz. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give us a great review if you feel so inclined. And then if you've got some feedback or questions for me, please leave them at my website at catherinemaley.com. Or, of course, you can DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again.